Hi, welcome to the Conscious Eating Summit. I'm your host, Dr. Nancy Crowell. I'm very excited to have with me today Dr. Kori Propst. Dr. Kori is the Wellness Director and Vice President of the Diet Doc. She specializes in nutrition and weight loss consulting, incorporating flexible dieting, customized programming, physical and mental training, mind-body integration, optimal athletic performance, eating psychology, and overall well-being. She's also the co-author of the book 50 Days to Your Best Life. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kori.
Thank you, Dr. Nancy. I appreciate it.
Do you mind sharing with our viewers a little bit about how you got into this field?
Yeah, so I'll try to make it brief. I got my bachelor's degree in exercise physiology, and well, maybe actually I'm going to back up. I wanted to be a singer when I was growing up, and that was my original major in college. And singing for me was incredibly emotional. Each experience of being on stage and pouring feeling into the words was just such a magical experience for me. That I wanted that. It wasn't the singing and the performing and being in front of people. It was what I felt when I was doing it. So fast forward a little bit, and I finish a year of college, and I just kind of become disillusioned by the comments I'm getting from people, and really like, you're never going to make a living doing that, and being young and naive and having not necessarily reflected on, I was still maturing and hadn't really reflected on my values and didn't have super clear boundaries at that point at 19 years old. I switched my major to exercise physiology. In between that time, I had a pretty large struggle on the eating side of things. And I was 96 pounds at one point and exercising 4 times a day, and had really, it's interesting because I'm such a feeler and I'm a very emotional and sensitive person. At that time in my life, when, you have that transition into college and, I had my heart broken for the first time, I really kind of went into this isolated sort of a place, and I wasn't eating and just kind of shut down my emotions as I was really just honing in on academics, and didn't really have any friends at that point. But that was kind of the start of my recognizing what I needed in my life, besides just the superficial. I was valedictorian in high school, and everything looked kind of perfect, right? Well, I mean, I finished college successfully with that degree, and then I got my master's in counseling. Imagine that, because I needed to find a way to combine mind and body. I knew the exercise physiology, fitness stuff, but it was empty without the focus on the emotion and mindset and psychology, and the human experience just fascinated me. And isn't that the truth, where a lot of people who go into the counseling field and social work, like, they go into it to kind of figure themselves out and in the process become, incredible helpers and caregivers to other people. But in 8th grade, I was named the natural helper by the student body. And it's funny because I never thought about that or reflected upon that as I moved through, my academics and to decide on a career path. But that's where I ended up as I, went through a lot of different hardships and difficulty and just trying to find my way and figure things out. And it was during my freshman year when I was kind of at the bottom of health, and I went to student health, and I'd had my blood drawn, and I was going in there to get the test results, and I had done like a fasting blood glucose, and the doctor came in. I was sitting on the bed, and she said, Kori, you're killing yourself.
Mm.
And you know where a lot of people, they have one moment where it's like, that was the moment they knew that things were going to change. And I remember walking back to the dorms, and I said, no more. I'm done. I am done doing what I have been doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I I desperately want to live. I just don't know how. That's what I kept thinking about. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I am this fallible, emotional human, and I have to find a way to be with these emotions, right? But so that's what really galvanized me in the very beginning. I didn't get my PhD until 2015, so 3 years ago. I had a good chunk of time, 6 or 7 years, between my master's and my PhD in health psychology and behavioral medicine. But I've done community mental health, and for the last 10 years, I've been a coach for individuals who are from the high-level athlete to the general population person who just wants to be as healthy and fit as possible in mind and body. But my specialty, the thing that I really enjoy working on more than anything, is the mindset and motivation piece. So what creates a high-level, energetic motivation that can be sustained? Because I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what motivation is. And when it comes down to the nutrition piece, motivation really filters into who and how do I want to be as a person? How do I want to show up in the world and for myself? And so when it comes to eating, those really serve as the foundation for the foods we eat and why we choose what we do and how we choose what we do and when we choose what we do and how we fuel our bodies. And so I really look at eating as an act of self-compassion. And that was the one thing that I really had to learn to be for myself, was compassionate. So
That's such a powerful story to share.
okay.
I love hearing how experts in a field get to where they are, and I would say more often than not, it's our own personal journey that makes us an expert in that field, right? It's like it's our own hardship and our own experience and having to go through it and to learn it, and then wanting to help relieve the suffering of others, like so they don't actually have to endure that same
Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
that makes sense, because what keeps us going and moving and striving and staying determined in what we do in our careers ultimately has to relate to what we value.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I look back over the course of why I chose what I did in school, and then what I'm doing in terms of my vocation now, it all relates to my values. And the things that keep me going are being able to contribute in a positive way. And really, like you said, based on what I have learned and how I have become who I've become.
Mm-hmm.
Because if more people can, I like to say this, Nancy, we're also focused on feeling better. And I think we need to focus less on feeling better. And as humans, of course, when we're not feeling good, like we know most of us know what it's like to feel better. So we want to move in that direction. But instead of that being our MO, what we need to really embrace is learning how to be better feelers. So it's not about feeling better, it's learning how to become better feelers. Because what I see so often, and this relates to emotional eating, is we're deflecting, we're denying, we're hiding, and that becomes very dysfunctional. We won't thrive, we won't feel alive, we won't feel a sense of vitality. We're not going to feel like we have a really high level of motivation if we're not willing to allow and face what life brings our way with a less sort of like barrier, put on the armor sort of a space.
Mm.
So
yeah, So this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about, which is emotional eating, and then also how to stay motivated. So yesterday, I actually had the experience of, and this is an old, like I have my own, we all have our patterns, right? And old stuff. Luckily, I'm aware enough now that I don't fall into them. But yesterday, my son was sick. And so therefore I couldn't go to the bar class that I like to go to on Sundays, which if it's like a ballet, for those of you that don't know, it's like a ballet exercise type class. So then I felt fat, which fat isn't a feeling, right?
No.
And then I felt like I wanted sugar, right? So there was a few things that happened. And for me, like as that was coming up, I kept thinking, well, there's something here, right? There's something beyond what I'm just the fly, something beyond, what I'm actually, you don't feel fat and the sugar cravings, neither of them are actually, those are like the superficial aspect, right? There's something under that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't identify quite what that was yet, except for, I woke up feeling still kind of like there's something I need to uncover. But what is emotional eating? Because I'm wondering, like, I mean, not everyone has that level of self-awareness, like some people might have felt that feeling and just gone for it
Mm-hmm.
rather than being able to have that pause and say, and that was me definitely in my early 20s. I was definitely a sugar addict.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
you think about it and you want it, and so you eat it. There's
yeah.
just impulsive nature about it. Yeah. I think when most people talk about emotional eating, they're looking at it as the bad type of emotional eating. Like, I need to figure this out type of emotional eating. Like, I'm hurting myself emotional eating. Like, I'm fat because I'm emotionally eating. It's very impulsive. It's without the pause. It's what I see having more to do with I'm not sure and don't have the skill or a skillful means of being with whatever emotion is presenting itself right now. But let me pause there to say that not all emotional eating is bad. We all do some level of emotional eating. We're humans, so we experience emotion. I mean, it's very rare that we're going to go into any meal having zero experience of emotion, some
Yeah.
sort of feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we eat emotionally at celebrations. Those are happy times. Those are joyful times. We may overdo it. Then do we call that emotional eating if we're happy? We could. Ultimately, when we talk about emotional eating, we're talking about eating that isn't necessarily mindful. So full of care, full of compassion, having a quality, a little bit more of neutrality, like of in Buddhism and like meditation, they call it neutrality. So like non-attachment. There isn't this sense of like incredible urgency, like grasping for something or pushing away and denying something. And all of us know what that feels like. We call them urges, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I have an urge for cake, or I have an urge for ice cream or something. But essentially what an urge is a thought. An urge is a thought. I want cake. Like, cake would taste really good right now. Or in your case, like, I want sugar. That's a thought.
Yeah, and it just passed. When I didn't act on it, it did pass. Yeah, it did
Right?
pass. Yeah.
What happens is when people get caught up in that urge, that thought. So you thinking, I want sugar, and then you, like, that thought snags you, and then you're like, I wonder what I have in the kitchen. And then you go to the kitchen. So the thought causing actual behaviors and actions taken. And now you're digging around in the freezer for ice cream or cookies in the cupboard or whatever. But exactly to your point, I think a more skillful means would be to pause, to recognize this is just a thought, like all the other thousands of thoughts I have a day, and most are innocuous. Like, they're not going to snag me, they're not going to catch me up anyway. Like, they're here and then they're gone, like the clouds in the sky. But ultimately, I see a lot of people engage in emotional eating because they're misaligned in some way with what's important to them. And I will say this, fitness is important to you. You missed your bar class. Like, that holds a lot of meaning for you. Like, if I were to ask you, you know, what is it that you get out of going to your bar class?
Well, for me, I think it was because I actually committed. Okay, I'm really big on following through commitments to myself.
Okay.
And I have committed to going at least 3 days a week. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to go today because I had interviews all day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to go yesterday. So I still had my 3 week. And now I will have failed myself in my mind, right? Because I will not be able to get 3 in based on my schedule and everything else. So yeah, it's because I think I take and this is only more recent. I actually prioritize commitments to myself above all, because if I can't follow through on a commitment to myself, then I will not have the same power, I feel like, to what I declare.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah.
So we're getting to what a primary value is of yours, like self-commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to do something, then it's important that I follow through with that.
Yeah.
If we were to dig a little deeper, like a primary value of mine is gentleness. So even in those moments when I can't follow through with a commitment that I said I was going to, and that is admittedly very important to me, if I were going to approach that situation with gentleness, how would I be and what would I do?
So there would be like the compassion aspect for, that you hit the nail on the head, because that's definitely something for myself that I know that I need to grow into, is having more like gentleness towards myself, for sure.
So it goes, like, commitment, awesome. Like, you want to do what makes you proud. A little deeper than that, if you're softer and you're gentle with yourself, because you didn't shirk the responsibility. Like, what you actually did is you're following through with something else that's really important to you and that you committed to, right? These
right.
interviews. So you didn't class to what? Go watch a movie or something. I mean, maybe that's a high value of yours. But you get my point, is a deeper level. Can you then commit to gentleness in those times when the expectation wasn't met? Okay.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So that's the more skillful means. And in those moments when we feel almost driven by someone or something to eat in a situation when we're upset, when we're discouraged, when we're distracted, when we're anxious, stressed. That's what I hear the most, is I eat when I'm stressed. Well, what is my question to a lot of my clients first is, how do you know you're stressed? Because that's going to connect us to our bodies, right? Most people can't answer that question right away. They're like, well, because of the way I feel. Well, what are the feelings? What are you feeling in your body? Where in your body is saying there's stress? What's the experience inside here? Like tightness in your chest, or your shoulders up around your ears? Like, is your heart beating faster? Are you like hot? Are you clenching your teeth? Are you unable to have a level of clarity? Like, your thoughts are all over the place. So we have to get to the recognition piece and an understanding of what are the signs and symptoms that my body presents that can tell me I'm in this space. But what happens is we call it stress, and we have an association with what stress is. It's bad. It's, this has to end. It's, I've got to get away from this, right? Well, what if we looked at and had a different perception of stress, which is, this must be really important to me.
Yeah.
Does the game change a little bit then?
Yeah, there's a definite mind shifter. And even like I've realized, I've kind of identified them as like a breakdown of some sort, right? Like I'm in a breakdown. And on the other end of that is always some sort of breakthrough, like some realization, right? Some powerful shift for myself. But I totally agree. The more we could probably just settle into it, right? That's like that radical acceptance and responsibility for what is.
I love that word, Nancy, settle. Like, because one of my words is soften. When I notice that keyed up feeling, like I can feel the intensity ramping up, it's like, breathe. Number one, breathe, guys. Number one tactics, strategies, skill. Use what you naturally have available to you. You don't need anything else, just what you have right here in your lungs. Because that automatically changes your physiology in your nervous system, right?
Yeah.
And then you're in a better space to be able to say to yourself, soften. And like when I do that, my shoulders automatically come down. Oftentimes we're walking around with our bellies tucked in and, pulled in, and I can feel my belly soften, and I can feel like my butt has roots into my chair. So I'm settling, like I'm grounded. When we're feeling anxious, oftentimes it just feels like we're all over the place. We're chaotic. There's no sense of coherence or groundedness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you get clients to stay in this kind of mindset?
So I don't think it's realistic to stay in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, nothing's static, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Everything
it's more of a teeter-totter, right? That's kind of what I use for the analogy for health. I'm like, when you're imbalanced, you're on like two sides of a teeter-totter, and your highs and lows are massive. And when you're healthy, you're not like not having any movement, but like you're standing in the middle of the teeter-totter, and like you just have slighter movements.
Right. Yeah. If we are feeling a sense of, I love this. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Dan Siegel. He uses an acronym of FACES. So it's flexible, adaptive, coherent, energetic, and stable. So 5 great words to explain what it's like when we are in that space of like equanimity, sense of balance, right? Sense of coherence, where it's not, it's like we're not swinging from one extreme and then to the other extreme and then the other, back and forth, like those roller coasters. We love those if we're at an amusement park. It's not fun to live there, guys. So we want to be like right here in the middle, just kind of floating back and forth, avoiding those extreme places. And so in order to get there, we do need to learn new skills. There's 3 basic psychological needs in self-determination theory that really explain what the foundation is of a vital sense of motivation for life, for moving forward, for living. And one of those is competence. So that's a felt sense of effectiveness in managing our environments internally and externally. Now, if we're in a situation where we're like, I don't know what to do here, or this is really uncertain, our sense of competence is strained a little bit, right? It's fractured a little bit, it's threatened. And when that happens in those moments, because we don't like uncertainty, and part of the mindset shift is, can I learn to love it, right? Practicing that. Like, okay, bring on uncertainty. I'm going to practice sitting in uncertainty. Think about vacations. Why do we go on vacations? Well, a lot of times we're doing things we don't normally. There is some level of novelty and uncertainty, but we're choosing it. So it's the uncertainty that we're not choosing willingly that tends to cause the problems, right? I'm putting that in quotes, the problems, because it's not really a problem. not really a problem. Our brains just haven't evolved to enjoy uncertainty. Uncertainty meant we could die in the next few seconds if we're not careful. Mm-hmm. But in this day and age, in this world right now, like, that's not realistic. That's probably not going to happen. So when we sense that uncertainty, our competence is being threatened. And instead of being like, oh God, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. I should go eat, or I should go assuage this feeling in some way. Booze, alcohol, sex, men, whatever. I mean, those things are just like emotionally eating. What we're doing is we're essentially trying to move away from what's right here in front of us. Instead, being able to say, oh, I can feel that tightness. This is an experience. This is an experience.
Like neutrality around it.
Yeah, we don't have to label it in some extreme way or negative, positive, valenced way. Mm-hmm. This is an experience. Okay, now can I just be with the sensations of the experience? Because a sensation in your body, like heat, is just heat. Heat doesn't judge. Heat's not saying this is bad. It's just heat, just like pain. Pain doesn't live anywhere. Like, pain doesn't have a face or a flavor or a valence until our minds put one on it. Mm-hmm. So if you think about, people who have different tolerances of pain, like some people can experience a lot of pain and it's not painful. Literally. It's like, no, not a big deal. Another person can feel the same level and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. Well, the same is for different things in life. Through practicing being in uncertainty and weathering different storms and managing them and not getting caught up in thoughts and believing them, we can extend and widen that like level of tolerance for various things. And that's what we call like resilience. Our window of tolerance widens. Mm-hmm. So we know a lot of people who experience hardship in their lives and difficulty and a lot of emotional or psychological pain through death or loss or trauma in some way. A lot of them end up on the other side of that experiencing post-traumatic growth. Because they've really widened their window of tolerance and they've found ways and discovered ways and worked into ways and learned ways of not getting caught up in the trauma anymore, but learning how to use it in a generative way and to help other people. So it makes sense for them now. It leaves this, I can't believe this happened to me, this shouldn't have happened to me space, and goes into, you know what, if I'm going to have this energy around this because it happened to me and I can't get away from it. Like, I can't change my past. That happened. If I'm going to use that energy in an optimistic, positive way, then they've made sense of it. They've integrated into their life somehow.
Yeah. I mean, so basically it's rewriting your story.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And taking yourself out of the victim, right? And into the more empowered. I mean, we could look at all of each of us has traumas, right? Each of us has, not maybe the same traumas, but everyone experiences trauma on some level. And it seems like those are our greatest gifts sometimes, those traumas, right? They are like, well, I mean, for the people that take them and turn them into that, but you can take those traumas and you can transform the world, yourself. I mean, they really are gifts. And not when you're in them, of course they don't feel like that. They're horrible. They're horrible. When I was in the middle of my eating disorder, that didn't feel good. And I wasn't thinking, this is all for good. Like, I keep this going. This is awesome. No, not at all. But the individuals who can, and when they decide to change, it's gotten to that point where they're like, I don't want to live this way anymore.
this isn't who I want to be and how I want to show up. And so to your point, it can feel empowering and painful at the same time, arduous. It can feel like a struggle and completely worth going through the struggle to get to the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that it has helped you become the person that you are now. Yeah. But that's the other piece, the other two pieces of, because I mentioned the 3 basic psychological needs, and one of them being competence, skillfulness. That's learned. That's choosing to live your life like life is a practice, and practice is life. My favorite word on the planet is practice. Because everything we do, think, feel, say, and are, has the potential to become a habit. What do I want to become a habit in my life? What do I want to just become more automatic? Being compassionate to other people, being compassionate towards myself, being gentle and soft. So what am I going to do every single day, and how am I going to practice thinking so that I can get closer and closer and closer to that being how I am most of the time? Because coming back to your question, how do we maintain it? Well, I mean, it fluctuates, but we're not either here or here.
Yeah.
And we need to be feeling that felt sense of autonomy. That's one of the other basic needs. So that's our sense of choice. Am I doing what is in accordance with what's important to me, my values, not Joe Blow down the road, not what someone else has said I should be doing, but what is truly important to me. I've made these choices. No one is coercing me or putting demands on me in some way that, is very misaligned with my own boundaries and principles. And then connection. And that's that felt sense of belonging. So I feel that I can love and be loved, and that I don't necessarily have to change myself in some way in order to fit in. Those are the other 2 needs. And anytime 1 or 2 or 3 of those feel threatened or fractured in some way or unsupported, this is what I found in my dissertation research is people, and I was interviewing individuals who were dieting or who were maintaining their weight or who had dieted before and just couldn't maintain. So these were dieters, a dieting population. When any one of those needs was threatened in some way, they would move towards some level of emotional eating, whether it was kind of just picking at foods impulsively or a full-on binge. And so if we're more in touch with those needs for ourselves, connection, competence, and autonomy, anytime we find ourselves sort of moving into what most people would call like self-sabotaging behavior, we can probably find one of those needs has been threatened in some way. And so then it's time to ask ourselves, like, what really needs taken care of here?
So I have a question. So if there's a viewer watching, and you had like one thing that you really wanted them to take away from this, what do you feel like that would be? Like something they could even start practicing or doing, something tangible for them?
I think that one of the most important things that really served me well and still does is to get in touch with the thoughts up here. And number 1, remember that you don't have to believe them, because we have the mind is just doing what the mind does. The mind has thoughts. And if we can practice not getting attached to a thought and believing that thought, even if that thought is something like, my boss hates me, or, why did he look at me that way? Because you can see how that can turn into a massive snowball of a story. So just to practice, oh, okay, I see you. I call it catch and release. So I catch the thought, I see it, I'm like, interesting. All right, release it. That would be the number 1 thing, because it's the thoughts so often that lead to the sorts of behaviors that we're not proud of for ourselves and that we hurt others with too. So we hurt ourselves and we hurt others. And so it oftentimes will begin here. And then with that, like if you catch the thought, notice like, wow, what is changing in my body right now as a result of that thought? Like I feel constricted now and tight. I don't feel open and expansive and, one of my favorite words, ready. Like oftentimes, for example, when people are in stress mode, they're like this, they're like tight and, they're like head down, that's not open and expansive and ready. And you can't necessarily be present in that place in your body. So I think that's what I would give viewers to take away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And
so you have, okay, go ahead.
No, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Put a timer on your phone to do this a couple times a day, because if it's not in front of you, if you're not reminded, like it's not going to just come naturally. Yeah. So just sucked into the busyness of our days and productivity. So, set a timer to go off or schedule it on your calendar each day to take 5 minutes to just sit. This is super challenging for a lot of people. 5 minutes just sitting and just notice the thoughts. And be neutral about it. Just have fun with it. Like you're watching a movie of your mind. Just watch. Huh. Oh, wow. You'll get to know yourself well.
Yeah.
And see if there may be some things that are important to you or things that maybe you need to take a look at on a deeper level. But set a timer to do it.
Yeah, a timer is really helpful. Otherwise, I'm like, okay, that's enough. Right? Yeah. What was it, like a half an hour, like 5 minutes, 1 minute, or 30 seconds.
It can feel like a long time. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. What's interesting, I'm gonna need to wrap it up, but when you were talking about you were talking, I don't think you used this word, but you were talking about grit.
Yeah.
And you were talking, the resilience. And I've been, any of the viewers that are watching that have children, there's this website called the Big Life Journal, and it's basically teaching resiliency and mindfulness and these kind of like mental mindset stuff to children, right? And so I was been doing it with my 5-year-old. We also have like a meditation practice every morning.
Yes.
But anyways, we were watching all these little videos, and I just wanted to share with everyone that there is no failure. There is no failure. And I think this is a huge mental shift that everyone needs to like grasp and hold on to, is that the most successful people in the world have failed more times than they have succeeded. Yep. And the more that we can let go of this idea of being perfect and fail, like never failing and all this stuff, I think it really would just, just shoot our progress forward by like a million.
Wouldn't it bring the intensity of the world down?
Yeah.
A million notches. And it doesn't have to remove productivity. It would actually increase it, guys, to be perfectly honest. If you were to let go of all of those thoughts that say you have to do it this way and, this outcome must be met by, and you have to be this way, the have tos and the shoulds, man, think of how many more risks you would take and how you would go into certain things, just being open and joyful and compassionate and loving. That's how we move forward. Yes. Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we get off the phone, I want you to have time to share your free gift, because you have a very generous free gift that you're offering.
Yes, I want everyone to have the opportunity to be involved in my 7-week online course called We Eat How We Live. So stop emotional eating and change your relationship with food. So I take people on a 7-week journey through all of the most important concepts and aspects that I have seen really influence our ability to more skillfully manage emotion. Because at the heart of it, that's what's causing us to move down a path that feels self-sabotaging and super discouraging. So yeah, everyone can click on the link that you're going to provide, Nancy, and you'll be entered into a drawing to win the course.
Awesome. Yeah, so everyone, the link is below this video, and the link is also in the email where you found this video. So there's 2 different ways. And then just share your website. It's behind you, thedietdoc.com, if they want to get a hold of you.
Yep, it's www.thedietdoc.com. And people can feel free to email me as well. My email is Kori, Kori, @thedietdoc.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kori, for taking the time and sharing all of this important information with us.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank you all for joining me today. Make sure you check your inbox tomorrow for the next interview. Bye.
Bye.